Hello everyone, so it's been a while since I put up a paint-along video. I'm trying to get through a little bit of a sort of chore, painting webbing on a lot of figures, so I needed something to help me pass the time, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of content up on YouTube that I could spend long enough watching, to get me through this. So thought I'd make a video of my own and talk a little bit about things in general, sort of as they come to my mind. But the main thing today, so I'm pointing the camera out the window again as usual, rather than show you my rubbish painting and embarrass myself at the poor quality of it. So I'm giving you a view out the window again to look at. It's May the 4th today, bank holiday weekend, nice sunny day here in Plymouth. So I've just zoomed in on a little bit of the sea, and earlier there was quite a lot of sails filling that little patch of sea there, but they all seem to have dashed off into the distance. But if you're lucky, you might get a view of the occasional little sailing vessel going by. Not sure if there was a regatta or something, sailing club out there earlier, because there were a lot of them all in one place at the same time. No larger vessels due to come by today, except for the let's just have a look. I think the Brittany ferry will be in, but it may not be in while I've got the camera running. Oh yeah, it's definitely not. It's not due in until this evening. So you may be looking at that and nothing other than the odd seagull flying past the camera. But the whole idea is for you to be getting on with your own painting tasks and not looking at the camera anyway. So yeah, May the 4th today, and International Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. But I am sort of feeling quite weary of a lot of things. Both life in general and YouTube and the wargaming hobby and all kinds of things. I'm not going to suddenly announce the end of my YouTube channel, because I do enjoy putting content up, and I don't think I'm in any way depressed or anything. So I'm not going through some mental health crisis or anything like that, but I am just feeling really quite jaded and tired of things in general, and YouTube in particular. As I said earlier, I just can't find enough on it now to help me pass the time. I like to have it on while I'm painting wargame figures, and it seems to me to have changed. It's changed from the point of view of a viewer, but it's also changed from the point of view of a content kind of provider, and it's inevitable it would, but it's not changed for the better as far as I'm concerned. The big reason for that. There were a lot of reasons, but if you take the case of my own channel in particular, I mean, it's doing quite well in terms of the number of subscribers. I'm over 2,500 subscribers now, and you'd think I would be kind of keen to continue to build on that, but I'm not at all. I think the trouble is, as you gain subscribers, you kind of lose touch with them in a way. I mean, I know I don't allow comments on most of my content anyway, but I do feel that even though I wasn't, a completely 100% wargaming content channel, my channel's not meant to be a wargaming channel. It's meant to be about the more kind of the broader subject of the past in general, and that can include an awful lot of things, including natural history and the Dartmoor and so on. But yeah, it's got to the point now where I feel I'm kind of losing touch with the people, whose subscriptions I value, and you will know who you are from the comments I make on your own channels, or the replies I've made to your comments back in the days when I did used to allow comments on my channel. But I think that is the danger of what happens with a lot of channels when they get above a certain size. I mean, I certainly feel that I don't have that direct relationship that I used to have with a lot of the more popular channels. And not only that, but those popular channels seem to their aim seems to still be, even though they are doing very well, seems to still be to expand still further. And that they just seem to be churning out content that has really got no interest to me any longer. I used to like people sharing their enthusiasm for the wargaming hobby, say, and showing their figures, talking about their purchases and what they might have read, war game shows they'd been to, that kind of thing. But if and when they get to a point where they've got thousands of subscribers or even tens of thousands of subscribers, I kind of switch off, because I don't know what it is. You lose that kind of that feeling of friendship, of feeling you have a kind of more personal relationship with the channel. And I mean, quite frankly, a lot of their content becomes quite bland and repetitive, and dare I say it, I mean, sometimes it even becomes it deteriorates in quality whilst striving to improve its quality. So that's my own definition of what quality is. I really can do without all this sort of musical introductions to channels, theme tunes and jingles and jazzed up kind of rock music sort of intros and things, so you get 30 seconds of garbage before you even get onto the video itself. and then I do find myself kind of seriously disapproving and disagreeing with some of the stuff that they then put up. And of late, I mean, I will give you a really good example of that, and he's not going to take offence because I know he doesn't subscribe to my channel, and he won't have noticed the fact that I've unsubscribed from his, because he has tens of thousands of viewers now, subscribers now, and that is a channel which I used to think was superb, which is Drakinifel, the naval history channel. So, you know, here's a good example of a channel that isn't related to, well, it's related to wargaming. He talks about games occasionally, but he's mainly a more, what you could describe as serious naval historian. But the quality of any history that you're going to see on YouTube, you have to be very careful about. It's never going to be of a kind of high academic standard, no matter how good it is, no matter how knowledgeable the person is talking about their subject. It's a kind of popularised type of history, and I'm not poo-pooing that. I think history does need to be accessible to the general public, but it's not. The best way of describing it is to use Drakinifel as an example. If you look closely at his icon that he uses, what do you call them, like the stamp, forget what it is, but you know what I mean, the picture that personifies his channel. He describes himself as a historiographer, and that immediately tells you a lot about his channel and YouTube history in general, because the word historiographer doesn't exist in the Oxford English Dictionary. There is no such thing as a historiographer. So immediately, you know, you can tell that he's not a serious academic. You have historians and you have historiographers. Historiographer is what you could essentially call a historian of history, of history writing, a historian of the subject of history rather than of history itself, if that makes sense. But what there isn't is a historiographer. That's a very crude, bad label for what he is trying to accomplish on his channel. And I'm not knocking what he's trying to accomplish on his channel. I'm just saying you have to be very careful not to take history too seriously if you pick it up from YouTube, which unfortunately is how most people are going to pick it up. So I used to be a subscriber to Drakinifel. I'm not anymore. I haven't watched. I've maintained my subscription to his channel for a long time, and only recently unsubscribed. He won't, as I say, he's not going to take offence at anything I'm saying about his channel. because he doesn't. I'm sure he doesn't have the time to watch my channel. But I just feel when the channel gets above a certain size, and mine has got to that point now where I've got more. I know I don't allow comments on my channel anyway, but I've got more subscribers than I can feel comfortable with maintaining a kind of personal relationship and friendship with those people. And quite frankly, when I did have comments allowed on my channel, I sort of definitely took exception to people using my channel as a platform to express their own outlandish and weird opinions. But I also felt a bit kind of tired of having to reply to comments that were really just designed to inform my audience that those commenters had channels of their own, and they would like my viewers to go and watch their channels. So it would be the sort of typical what you used to describe them before, the comment that would just be something like "nice vid, mate," or "great paint work," or something like that. You know, really kind of bland. No point in making the comment. I mean, thankfully, YouTube did begin to provide kind of artificially intelligence generated replies that you could make to these comments, but you know, the whole point from YouTube's point of view, of course, is to keep that kind of cauldron boiling, keep the pot boiling and the bubbles frothing up at the top, keep the activity going, so that advertisers would see activity and think it therefore worthwhile to place adverts in the channels. And none of that really began to sort of bother me until YouTube decided they were going to place commercials on your channel whether you monetized your channel or not. And that is one of the things that has slightly spoilt my own enjoyment of YouTube, because I began to have to think about. I certainly then at that point monetized my own channel, because there's no point in making an effort to put things up so that someone else can make money out of them. But it kind of, whether you want it to or not, it does change your relationship with your viewers and with YouTube as a company to interact with. And I mean, Drakinifeld is, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's how I could describe his channel, call his channel. You know, he's a prime example of someone who has been really successful. He probably makes enough money from his channel, you know, not to have a full-time job, I would imagine. And you can certainly see that, you know, he's able to spend a lot more time on travelling, visiting naval museums here and abroad and so on. And you know, but I find his content has really began quite a long time ago, and I didn't unsubscribe from his channel at the time, but I was seriously contemplating it when he had this really flippant channel on video on the subject of, I think it was the Scharnhorst Well, it might have been the Gneiss now. The German ship that made a dash through the channel, and the British failed to stop it getting through the channel. But great many people lost their lives attempting to stop it, including forget his name, the person who won the VC flying a swordfish, trying to torpedo the ship. But he had this really stupid kind of voiceover trying to almost mock this VC winner with a sort of tally-ho kind of attitude voice, and I really found that a little bit objectionable. And after that I sort of only really watched videos of his that were on subjects that, you know, linked to my own interests. And then it's only very recently that I just decided enough was enough, because I wasn't watching a great deal of his content any longer. And he put up a video on the subject of Prince Philip, and I immediately unsubscribed at that point, because I had no interest in taking any more videos on the subject of the royal family, past or present. So I kind of literally switched off at that point. So he can carry on doing his historiography, and, you know, I'm sure he'll have a lot of success, but I'm not interested in historiography. I'm interested in historians and history. But yeah, it kind of, it might seem I'm kind of contradicting myself in a way, because as many of you will know, I'm a great fan of the historian A.J.P. Taylor, and one of his great contributions to the subject of history really was to popularise it by appearing on TV in the early days of television, and kind of making it more accessible to the general public, which I think I've said already to you is something that I would endorse. But it was really the thin end of the wedge in that TV channels, even back in the day when there was only the BBC and the ITV, there was a definite trend towards making history more appealing, you know, to people who it wouldn't naturally appeal to. And the sort of prime example of that is the way, you know, as time has progressed, you get more and more personable historians on TV. So people who are pleasing to the eye, pleasing to the ear, and just get jumped about from one location to another, that is, you know, a nice place to look at on camera. And the actual subject matter they're dealing with would often then get abbreviated and sensationalised, and makes for good TV, but it's not necessarily, you know, sort of serious history again. You know, so some people's content can be very mixed. You know, a good example of that would be Alice Roberts, Professor Alice Roberts, who has you know, has had some really interesting subject matter on some of her documentaries and so on, but at other times, you know, the content has been very oversimplified and just not very substantial. So it's very up and down with her subject matter. Dan Stowe, another one. They're more often employed just for their sort of personal followings now and their fan clubs, as they are for the fact that the TV channels want to put up, you know, educational programs. It's more about getting viewers in than it is about educating those viewers once they've been hooked. And of course, lots more commercial channels. Nowadays, and it takes you back to YouTube, which is now, well, has always been, but it's obliged everybody who contributes to YouTube to be a commercial channel as well. So you get that crossover now where you'll have people like Dan Snow. I think he's got his own YouTube channel, and you know, that's where Drakinifel is kind of coming from as well. You know, he does it well, you know, in what he's doing, but he's basically trying to be a kind of minor celebrity in his own right, you know, a minor Dan Snow, and it's not what I want out of YouTube. I want YouTube to be a lot more amateur, a lot more, you know, sort of intimate with its viewers, a lot more friendly and approachable, if you like. I'm not interested in seeing kind of poor imitations of people like Alice Roberts and Dan Snow. And sometimes they're good imitations, but I still don't want to see it. I want to sort of just have that feeling of camaraderie and so on, you know, within a kind of community. So I kind of really value the relationships that I've developed with people like Karen, Kits with Karen, and David at Zen Miniature Painting, and Ian at the Diomede, Terry Crick, Ian at Bucko's Piffle. If I carry on too long, I'm going to upset people by not mentioning them, but I do value those friendships that I have managed to develop. Never met the people. Well, I met some of them, but majority of you I've never met, never will meet. But I still consider you to be friends, and that is the value I've got out of YouTube. But you know, all those people seem to, you know, be really kind of drying up. It's the other trend that is pushing them out almost, in a way. I don't know whether they feel intimidated by the likes of, you know, channels like Storm of Steel or so on. you know, that they just can't keep up with the amount of content and the expansion, and you know, I think they feel kind of challenged to get up to those kind of subscription levels that some of those channels have. And you know, I would say my message would be, don't let it kind of worry you. Do carry on doing what you're doing. Lee at Emmett Wargamers, is it? Lee Hughes. You know, he did start putting up content again relatively recently, when he got in touch with me about something, and I asked him to, as a favour to me, to start putting up content, and he has been. But you know, it doesn't matter if it's not that often, but you know, please, all of you, just carry on putting out content, and don't worry about the what's becoming a bit, you know, a sort of rat race, really. I value your content far more than I do the likes of Drakenifal. Another one, Nigel, who I think still watches my channel. Used to have a beautiful channel, Darkling at Eldridge, it was called. But he stopped, so I think he was having a kind of computer problems. And I don't know whether he replaced his computer. You know, he is that sort of distanced from what I just described as the rat race, and was far more concerned with putting up images that had beauty. You know, he is an artist, and he had a very fine aesthetic kind of taste, you know, that covered everything, you know, but it included the way he painted his Wargames figures, and he was happy to show those figures and to talk about, you know, how he based his figures, how the colours he used, and on top of that, you know, he had didn't have a large audience, and he was polite and interested in interacting. And I have met him a couple of times at Salute and so on. And you know, his channel just stopped. And the more channels like that just go off air, the more preponderance the channels that I've really got no time for any longer, you know, seem to be taking over. And they appeal to a wide audience, so they're exactly the kind of channels that YouTube want to encourage. So the algorithms send them more and more viewers, and it has the effect of silencing what I want to see on YouTube, and what I personally am still trying to put up. So in a way, you know, the goal I would have is to I wonder if it's possible to put up a video on YouTube and for only one or even 0 people to watch it. Don't think it is. You're always going to get the bots and the artificial channels that don't have any human agency behind them watching it anyway. But yeah, I was in sort of a slightly side issue, but I visited recently a museum on Dartmoor. The prison on Dartmoor has a museum And before I went, I was thinking maybe do a little video on it for YouTube, but I decided against it in the end. But it actually said on the website, photography was allowed for non-commercial reasons. So if you take that, literally, it would mean that you couldn't do a YouTube video on it, because whether you monetize your channel or not, all content on YouTube is now commercial. So this is one of the things that, the whole commercialisation of society leads us all in a certain direction. I mean, I didn't say earlier, but of course it's not just the historians on television having to operate in a kind of commercial climate, but academia itself has been commercialised. We charge now students to, students have to pay tuition fees, so universities themselves have become commercial enterprises, and that has changed the nature of academia. So a lot of universities now appoint academics to be money earners for their universities. They have, not on the subject of history, but mathematics. If you take someone like Marcus Sautai, who was actually his title when he was at Oxford, I think it was Oxford, it might have been Cambridge, was part of his role was to inform the public, to gain a foothold on the media, and to be to be fronting TV documentaries and so on. So it's quite possible that people like Professor Alice Roberts are paid not only by the channels they appear on, but by universities that they have posts at, to be doing that kind of work. So it's kind of made, it's turned academia into a kind of commercial enterprise in its own right. But that's certainly the case with YouTube, that you have that crossover again between these professional historians, and when you get to a certain level of viewership, viewing levels and so on, you're going to be, there's a point where it's going to become a profession to you. You're going to have to start thinking about taxes and income and so on, and making your living from being a YouTube presenter. And the example of Dartmoor Prison is the same. But also, when I actually got to, it's worth going to if you ever get a chance. You're not going to see any pictures from me of it, but if you're on Dartmoor and it's a rainy day, think about visiting the museum there. But when you go in, they have a notice, and it not only reiterates this point about non-commercial photography is allowed, but not commercial photography. So it's not even a grey area really. There's no getting around the fact that YouTube is a commercial platform. But they also said, this notice that if other members of the public felt that your filming or photography was interfering with their enjoyment of the museum, then you would be asked to stop. And that made me think a lot about how often on television you will see things like car number plates or faces blurred out. But how often do you see that on YouTube? You know, people have a kind of expectation now that their privacy will somehow be protected, so that they won't be shown, especially children, which is another subject, more understandable. But often you will see faces and so on not shown on TV, in documentaries, but also news, items and so on. So it's something, whether you have a big channel or not, that maybe you should start to think about, because there is the technology. I've seen it again on television demonstrated, but there is already the technology out there to through facial ID software and so on, to be able to find people on social media who are just in the background of shots and so on. And it's much easier, especially as computing power, improves. Very easy. This particular article I saw on television was of a journalist looking at the whole subject of facial ID, and a business owner who was selling this software. Just I think he uploaded a picture of this journalist, and within about 30 seconds there was hundreds of pictures brought back from the web browsers and sort of search engine type of software, showing this journalist all over the place. Pictures that he hadn't known had been taken where he's not in the foreground, just in the background of things. And it can do it for anybody. And as soon as we get quantum computers developed, and they're there already, but they're not mainstream yet. But the computing power of quantum computers is just enormous. So all these sort of cars that have cameras in them, not just dash cam cameras, but the ones that can read road signs and so on. They're not only reading the road signs, but they're photographing people, pedestrians and so on, as they go by. So it's a special worry with the fact that so many cars and the technology and so on is manufactured in China now. Stuart Lee had a joke, a sort of semi-joke. He was quite serious in the same way. He used to describe, I think it was either Twitter or Facebook, he described as a nationwide surveillance program run entirely by volunteers. But that's even more so now with the prevalence of smartphone technology and car cameras and so on. There are cameras everywhere being run by for perfectly innocent purposes, like all your YouTube content providers, but it's just uploading to the net billions and billions of images of everybody. So it would be quite legitimate if you went to a war game show, for instance. It would be quite legitimate for anybody to say, I don't want to be in that shot you just took, And you know, you'd be on a little bit of a sticky wicket, really. You know, as this notice at Dartmoor Prison demonstrates, and it is all down to the commercialisation and the growth of social media. You know, I'm as guilty of it as everybody else. I try not to get people in my footage, but that's mainly because I think they detract from the images I'm trying to show. If I film a war games table, I try and zoom in and just, you know, look at the picture, look at the figures rather than the people playing the game. But the same on Dartmoor. I mean, you're unlucky if you see people up there anyway, but I definitely try and avoid including people, you know, passers-by, if I can avoid it. But yeah, anyway, I haven't been looking at the screen, so I'm not sure if you actually saw anything at all in all that ramble. But I'm going to stop rambling at that point and go and make myself a cup of tea. So thank you very much for watching, or mainly listening, and speak to you again on the next video. Bye for now.